Good afternoon. This is Claudia Filos. I'm with the Center for Linux Studies in Washington, D.C. I'm joining us remotely from the Boston area, and today I'm so happy to introduce a discussion with Professor Gregory Nagy. He was our leader for the Heroes X project. He's the professor of classics and comparative literature at Harvard University, and he's a director at the Center for Linux Studies, and he's joining some members of our community today. So I hope we're going to have a beautiful discussion, and then at the end we have some news to share. So Greg, can you say hello? And then I'm going to invite everyone to just...
Hello, everybody, and I can see all sorts of wonderful faces in Hollywood Squares format.
Great. So can you guys just introduce yourself and say where you're from? Starting with you, Jack, maybe?
All right. Yes, I'm Jack Vaughn in Houston, Texas. I consider myself a bivocational attorney and classics scholar. And, of course, the longer love of my life is ancient Greek and Latin and ancient philosophy. And I was educated mostly at the University of Texas at Austin and the Universität Hamburg, Germany. And I have a master's from Hamburg in classics and philosophy, and my undergraduate major was ancient Greek at the University of Texas.
Thanks so much, Jack. Jackie, can you introduce yourself and just say your name and where you're from?
Oh, me? The other Jack? The other Jackie?
Yep.
Yeah, my name is Jacqueline Donlin, and originally from New York. I don't know if you hear the accent, but a long time from Boston. I'm pretty new to classic studies, but love it. So here I am.
Hi, Janet.
Hi.
Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, okay. I'm Janet Osolak. Hi there, everybody. Hi, Ellie. Hi, Professor Greg Nagy. I'm nervous, right? Sorry. I'm originally from Istanbul, Turkey, and live in New York for about 20 years now. And my first encounter with classics was through Heroes X, and from the first day on, I am under the spell, and I love it. I love it.
Thank you. Renan.
Yes. Hi, everyone.
Hi,
I'm from Brazil. I'm a licensed bachelor in history, and now I prepare draft to entry in the program of Master in Classical Archaeology, oriented by the Professor Maria Beatriz Borba Florenzano, teacher of the Museum of Archaeology and Ethnology of the University of São Paulo. I study Hippodamus of Miletus. Sorry.
Thank you. Hi, Sarah.
Hello, I'm Sarah Scott, and I live in Scotland. And my original study was in linguistics, and then I came into the Heroes Project version 1 and was a community TA in version 2. And I'm just absolutely loving being here in Hour 25 and having the opportunity to have dialogues about all this wonderful ancient Greek literature. And that's who I am. Hey.
Sarah. Hi, Bill. I think you're muted. Can you unmute, Bill, and just introduce yourself? Thanks.
I'm Bill Moulton, calling from Petersburg, Alaska. The fog hasn't quite burned off yet. That's enough for me.
Thanks so much. So, Greg, today we're so excited to say that you're joining us today until about a little bit past 12:30. But then again, we're going to have another conversation in about a week, right? That we have some exciting news to share about that.
Exactly. If all the rest of you can make it, we can already say definitely that we'll meet again next week. Here's hoping, so that we can follow up.
Right, and so in the meantime, I'd like to just share one other thing with you, which is that, we have a specific thread in our discussion forum where everyone's going to continue the conversation in the time in between, and then in addition to that, we're creating a special permanent thread in our discussion just for discussion of the best of the Achaeans, just because it's such a foundational work for our discussions together.
That's beautiful. I love that. Well, I might just jump in and say that I'm so glad that Claudia gave me the opportunity to talk about Euripides as Herakles, because as you know, it's not officially part of the Heroes X program. And even at the Harvard campus, I don't officially discuss Euripides as Herakles with the general education group that attends physically there at the Harvard campus. And can I tell you just very quickly why I ever even started introducing Euripides as Herakles into the discussion? I was so sick and tired of young people, and this is very young people, who were telling me that the hero is somebody that has to be admired, and that if there's anything the hero does that is morally wrong, that means that he or she cannot be a hero anymore. So in the late 90s, I had this brilliant idea, which really didn't work, of starting the whole class with Euripides as Herakles. I figured, okay, here's a case where we could see that that the hero can do morally questionable things. And you know what happened? Almost 90% of the young people who worked with me then said, come on, Greg, when Herakles killed his wife and his children, he was not himself. He was under the influence, so that doesn't count. And so there went that experiment, and then I went back to the Iliad. I thought, oh, well, what can you do? I might as well continue starting with the Iliad. And okay, especially young people will still hate Achilles, but let's give it a go. I must say, since I want to talk not only about the Herakles of Euripides, but also about the book, Best of the Achaeans, and to this wonderful group that I'm communicating with here who already have familiarity with everything we talked about, I thought I would say something about how I have changed in addressing this big problem of moral defects in the behavior of heroes. And especially last year, and really in the context of Heroes X and the wonderful dialogues we've had, I really came to change my mind or maybe see things more clearly. I don't know how to describe it, but here it is. And then I'd like to have your reactions. I realized, especially reading that passage in Iliad 19, which we feature so prominently in the program of Ancient Greek Hero in 24 Hours, that actually it's not just a human society that has all sorts of faults, even in the heroic age. It's divine society as well. And I think of the fact that Zeus has to throw Ate out of Olympus in that wonderful story within a story. He has to throw her out. What does that mean? That means that back in the heroic age, things were not going well in Olympus either, not just in our earthly existence. In other words, the only time that things really go well is when you and I, in let's say 5th century Greece, perform ritual. Ritual in reaction to myth makes everything all right. And even there, it's all right only because we know that next year we'll do it again, and the year after that, and the year after that, forever. That's what gives you the cosmos. That's what gives you the order of the universe. And another thing, I was reading with some specialists in Greek a part in Plato's Symposium, where one of the characters and supposed to be Aristophanes himself. So Aristophanes, the master of comedy, who's fictionalized here, is giving a speech about humanity. At one point, he makes the crack that the gods simply need humans to give them honor. It's almost like that Star Trek episode, and some of you will remember the title, where the Starship Enterprise lands on a planet and they find the god Apollo there, but he's all alone and isolated and very unhappy because he doesn't have people worshiping him anymore. Okay, so that's a funny modern way to say it, but even in a pre-modern sense, the gods need humans to give them the right themai, to give them the right rituals, to remind them of who they are. And it's not just some silly playing of games that we do when we fictionalize those kinds of things in the late 20th century, as in Star Trek. It really works. So, going back to Euripides' Herakles, it's, I think, this beautiful meditation by a very sophisticated creator of drama who knows his myths and rituals extremely well about what a hero really is. And it's starting from scratch. And you know what? Last thing, I'm starting from scratch with Euripides' Herakles too. So already today I've been doing a reworking of the translation, kind of whipping into shape some of the words that we have used in the previous version. And I'm also revising the commentary. So in order to work for you properly for our next meeting, which will be a week from today, same time, I hope, same station, a little bit earlier we'll start. What I hope to have by then is a new version of both the text and my informal commentary on the text of Euripides' Herakles,
Wow.
tying it in with Best of the Achaeans and so on.
Wow, that's amazing. That's exciting news. Thanks, Greg.
Well, you inspire me, Claudia, you and Ali, and
Yes.
then all the wonderful people I'm reconnecting with in most cases, and connecting with in some cases for the first time.
Yes. And you know, Ali, we didn't get a chance to talk to you. Can you just introduce yourself and say
Yes.
what you're doing at the center? Because it's really important work.
Yes.
Okay. So
And can you all see Ali? Let's make sure.
I'm Ali Marbury. I'm a programs coordinator here at the CHS in DC. I work primarily on programs for undergraduates, internships, study abroad, and things like that. And I did my my BA in classics at Rhodes College. So that's it.
A keystone member of the team at CHS. Keystone.
A vital member of the team.
Yes.
And by the way, since Sarah Scott did ask a question about the Herakles, shall we just dive into that maybe? I love the way you say it, Sarah. What other themes and concepts could you suggest that we look for as close parallels between Herakles and Achilles? And I think as we go from Iliad 19, that famous story by Agamemnon where Achilles is the hidden referent, we now see how Herakles himself behaves, and you know, I could go through the programmatic 3 characteristics of the hero about unseasonality, extremeness, and antagonism with the corresponding god or goddess, but more generally, and in some ways more specifically, we might also want to just consider why this group here is even engaging with Euripides' Herakles, because it does tell you things that you already know from the Iliad, but it gives you a different angle, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you one of the things is, and the person who asked this question, I think, is not here at the moment. It's Laura Ford's question about antagonism between Hera and Herakles, because it's not direct, it's indirect. But we can explore this further next week. But I'm thinking of all the ways that when Herakles is really experiencing his madness, it's regularly expressed in terms of a gigantic storm, and where the cosmos is really reacting to something. And given the fact that Hera is really the executive of the universe, and you really can't think of Zeus running the universe all by himself because it's this combination of Zeus and Hera, I think you see a lot of Hera agenda in the internal storms of Herakles, which are then externalized in this very, very beautiful poetic imagery of a violent storm. So that's just for starters, Sarah, and we can I hope, go deeper next week on that.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you. Yes, and I think that will give us plenty of scope for discussion. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So maybe Greg, if you would like to take some questions, maybe from people in the room?
I would love it.
Right. So does someone have a question they'd like to ask? If you could keep it brief, that would be great.
It doesn't have to be too brief, but you know.
Right.
Well, Greg, I was fascinated by your comments comparing Herakles in this play and Herakles' role in the Alcestis.
Yes.
The Alcestis, I understand, is an earlier play, and it presents Herakles as in a phase of his career where the labors are not finished.
Yes.
And there, he's the savior, and then in this drama, he needs to be saved and is saved by Theseus.
Yes.
Well, I thought what you write in the informal commentary was very inspiring, and
thank you.
I thought maybe you'd like to say more about that.
Yes, thank you so much for that, Jack. It's true that when at the end of the Alcestis of Euripides, which, as you point out, is an earlier play, Herakles has a wrestling match with Thanatos himself, Mr. Death incarnate. That is an act of salvation. He does save somebody from death, whereas I like the way you said it. He needs to be saved himself. But let me try maybe a little bit a different angle, which is that you could say, well, he saved himself by coming out of Hades and overcoming the hound of hell, Cerberus. So if he's made a return to light and life, isn't that a salvation? And then I know you know what's coming. Say, but wait a minute, he didn't really die when he went down to Hades, just as Odysseus didn't really die when he went down to Hades. And so that's cheating. That doesn't count. And so it's a premature salvation. Similarly, in Oedipus Tyrannos, remember how people are venerating Oedipus as if he were already their savior, but the kind of salvation that is needed hasn't happened yet. Now, the reason I go to Oedipus at Oedipus Tyrannos is that when you then switch to Oedipus at Colonus, you realize that the fact that Oedipus becomes a cult hero is the real key to being the true savior. Only after you die and become a cult hero can you become a savior if you're a hero. Okay? So in a sense, I would say that all the labors of Herakles and all the people he saved aren't really adding up to his status as a savior until he dies. And that's why the Alcestis isn't enough. We do need the Herakles of Euripides, because at the end, you remember, Jack, how that Herakles does become a cult hero. That is the prophecy in terms of the interaction with Theseus. So Yeah, I'm sorry for that long-winded answer, but I really like your question. And this isn't going to work if people ask very nice short questions and then I give very, very long answers. So let's go to another question, and I'll try to give a response that is shorter. And by the way, Jack, this isn't the last word. We have to continue this next time. I'm just getting the ball rolling here, okay? And I want to hear what you say to what I say.
So that's a wonderful start, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Greg, actually, I'd like to get another question in from the people who are in our room right now, but we also have about 33 people who are viewing from elsewhere. So we have a question from Judith Reed. Hoping you could just talk about this very briefly. She asks, I would like to know why Euripides and other Greek tragedians seem to arrange outcomes which are unbearably horrific. Herakles is not only unable to save his family, but in a frenzy murders them himself. Why such an extreme end for catharsis?
Well, that's a lovely question, and the only way, okay, quick answer, quick, and then we can elaborate next week. I would say if the hero is larger than life, and he or she is, then the suffering of a hero has to be larger than life too. That's why what is pathos, P-A-T-H-O-S, and it's simply an emotion. It happens to you and me because we're ordinary people. But if the pathos happens to a hero, it's a passion with a capital P, and that's something that Christianity really connects with too, right? If you think of the Passion according to St. Matthew, that's larger than life. It's larger than ordinary life. Similarly with heroes. When they suffer, they really suffer, and it's horrific. And therefore, both fear and pity are activated in a larger than life way. Love your question. And again, this is not an answer that precludes further conversation. We're just getting the ball rolling, right?
Exactly, yes. We're just developing conversations, just getting it started. Okay. So at this time, I'd invite someone else in the discussion room to ask a question.
Or a comment. It doesn't have to be a question. Jackie.
Oh, yeah, or a comment, yeah.
Well, I had a question, but it really wasn't about Herakles.
That's all right.
Oh, okay. My question was about Odysseus and the Scroll 8 and when he's listening to Demonicus.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was about the role, the interactive role between the audience and the singer. And when Odysseus comes to hear it, he is no one, but yet he becomes everyone by the end of the 3 songs. And my question is he cries. Does he really cry because he's truly sorry for his transgressions in Troy, or is he crying because he is the audience? He is the citizens of Greece who would find those transgressions against hospitality and the gods is really appalling. Because when he's away from being the audience on the athletic field, he kind of becomes himself again. And then when he's in Ithaca, he's like his evil twin. And so is it that he's truly regret his reactions, or is it just the civilizing influence of being the audience and being everyone?
I love that. You know, if you develop that into a paper, that would be a really fun read, because in fact, well, you helped me see something that I never said clearly. You said it very clearly just now, that it's the fact that he is the ideal audience. He may not be the ideal person morally, but he's the ideal audience because he's had experience as well as the experience of the poetry. So experience in real life, well, in heroic life, as well as in the poetry, and how all those things come together make him the perfect way for us to see every angle of the story. Certainly the Phaeacians don't see every angle of the story. That's why Alcinous asks, a not very withered question. I mean, it's poetically withered because it leads to a good answer, but nobody else gets it the way Odysseus gets it. So I love the idea that it's not so much Odysseus's reaction as an idealized audience reaction,
Right.
which is enhanced by the participation of the hero who was part of the story. I love it. Good formulation.
Right, because then he's the outlier. You know, when he's in the
Yes.
audience, he's the populace, the bell curve, and
Yes.
then outside, he's the one who respects neither decay or law.
Ooh. Oh, yeah.
Right. So he's that, and then he's the outlier. Outlaw.
So, and I think even at the end, you get really shocked about the cruelty of how retribution happens. And are we supposed to say, well, in those days, that's the way people had revenge? No, no, no. I think it's supposed to be morally shocking how he retaliates, even against the suitors. Sure, it's okay if you think of him as a cult hero coming back from the netherworld to exact vengeance, fine. But I'm saying if you try to look at it as an everyday situation, it's morally very upsetting. So yes, we shouldn't make Odysseus a moral litmus test at any given moment, because there are lots of things that go wrong with his actions. But it's how it all shakes out in the narrative. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And so Helen Pulaku, who's in our audience, is sort of adding a comment. She says, I think Odysseus cries for all these reasons, both for his transgressions and because he is the audience, and also out of empathy for the victims of the Trojan War. I believe that one answer doesn't exclude the others. So thank you.
Okay. Well, I think both Jackie and I can accept that. I don't want to speak for Jackie, but I'm okay with that, and that's the beauty of a Homeric audience. A Homeric audience is all-inclusive. And could I say that there's a beautiful new book on the topic of the implied Homeric audience by David Elmer, E-L-M-E-R, called The Poetics of Consent. It's just a lovely exercise in showing how the audience that is presupposed by the Iliad and the Odyssey is something that incorporates heroes' reactions and our reactions and crosses time, and yet it's very, very precise. It's systematic. It's like a Swiss watch.
So, Greg, actually, can I follow up on that? Because I know that this is something that Janet has been thinking about a little bit in terms of the audience, and one of the words that she was thinking about was this word "ainos." Janet, can you just want to explain that a bit?
Question, Janet.
Oh, okay. Hi. I was wondering if we can use "ainos" as an umbrella term to cover previous knowledge of audience before they see the performance. I know in Euripides' Herakles, he changed the order of toils, right? He puts labors. He is done with his labors, and then he comes back. So do they know that Euripides changed the order in his performance? And this knowledge is, I think, in absent signifiers. Do they know and do they understand these signifiers? So,
I think they do. I think they do, and I think you're right about, especially the first part of your question, which is the first part of the question is just a beautiful formula, and I can read it back to you. I have the text here. Can ainos be used as an umbrella term to acknowledge audiences' understanding and knowledge about the song culture? Yes, 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 absolutely. And could I also say that although there are moments in the epic of the Iliad and the Odyssey where an ainos is embedded, in another sense, the embedding of an ainos, so that you say, well, the ainos is a part of the bigger picture, is not enough, because the qualifications you need to understand the einos are not just for understanding what's embedded, it's for understanding everything. And that's what you're telling me, and I do agree. Could I also say that, this is confessional, okay? Because for something like 20 years, after reading a lot of Pindar, you know, I came up with my formula that I would be telling students again and again and again for 20 plus years, that you have to have the 3 requirements, that you have to be knowledgeable, you have to be moral, you have to be emotionally connected. But I really only found it systematically in Pindar. And then guess what? There's a professor at University of California at Berkeley, Martin Schwartz, who found the same 3 requirements in Avestan traditions. I was the happiest person on earth. So it turns out that what I had kind of intuited on the basis of the poetry of Pindar and working backwards into Homer, somebody else found in a very old Indo-European language that goes back to, the attestation of which goes back to the 2nd millennium. And this is the language of the Zoroastrians, which is the sacred texts of the Avesta. And you have a similar mindset, in fact, a cognate mindset there, that you need to have these 3 qualifications to understand anything you hear. Again, you have to be knowledgeable, you have to be moral, and you have to be emotionally connected. Or at least that's the ideology of what you need. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Greg, thank you for this wonderful start of our discussion. Actually, we're just sort of kicking off a week-long event. So we're going to continue this conversation during the week. And then you can join us again.
Who knows, if next week works, if we can really cycle back next week, a little bit earlier, but roughly the same time, same station, this could be a new tradition, right?
So beautiful.
Of just recycling, so that whatever anybody mentioned today, this is open-ended. The idea is that we simply started a conversation, and thanks to Claudia and Ali, they won't let me simply leave the conversation where it is. We'll continue it the next time.
Yeah, great. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and I'm looking forward to our further conversations both on Hour 25 and on our next Hangout. So stay tuned to Hour 25 for updated details, and to the social media accounts of the Center for Hellenic Studies. We'll let you all know about the upcoming event and about how you can join us. Thanks so much.
And I hope that those people in the boxes whom I see, these wonderful faces,
yes.
Those of you who haven't spoken, you've got to speak the next time. Okay?
Yes.
I mean, everybody introduce themselves, but that's good, but even more, okay?
Yes.
So I'll be ready for you. You'll be ready for me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.